Every country has its own culture, habits and customs. And of course, France is no different. If you've ever visited France or seen how French people interact in movies or French TV shows, you might even have picked up on some of these differences. As a French person, it is sometimes difficult to teach those cultural differences because they're ingrained in me from a very young age. But from time to time, I like to create lessons that give you a real insider look at these differences, so that you can get to know French culture on a deeper, more intimate level. Today we'll take a look at these lessons where I will show you 5 things that French people never do. C'est parti! Have you ever wondered if French fries are actually French? What about the French manicure? Did it actually originate in France? Do houses in France have French windows? And what about the French sounding expressions that we sometimes use in English, like maître de? Do French people use them too? It may surprise you that some of these words and expressions are rarely or never used by French people, and when you use them, it makes it very obvious that you're a tourist or a non-native French speaker. In today's lesson, I want to give you some examples of these fake French words and give you some more proper French vocabulary to replace them so that you can sound more authentically French. For instance, a few French words in English that are not really ever used in France, like brunette, like that. Brunette doesn't really exist. We say brun or brune.
Hier soir j'ai flashé sur la brune, hier soir j'ai navigué dans la brume, on est...
Or for a stranger word, maître de, this one can hurt a French person's brain because we do say un maître d'hôtel, literally master of the hotel for the head waiter at a restaurant. And it's le directeur d'hôtel or la directrice d'hôtel for a hotel manager. But you can't just take a word out of the expression. It would mean master of, and it's meaningless. Especially since de becomes de apostrophe only before a vowel, or like here, a silent H. Without the next word, it makes no sense to have the apostrophe. This is the kind of expression that is so funny for a French person to hear. Okay, but that's not bad actually, it's okay. They're just Gallicisms, words in English that look like they are French, but when they're used as part of the English language, they can follow up any of its rules and meanings. All words are borrowed or made up anyway, so this is okay in English. It would only be a problem if you thought you could use them in French in the same way. And that's the same problem for some stereotypical French expressions that we don't actually use. You know, things like sacre bleu, sacre bleu.
Oh, sacre bleu!
That's a very old-fashioned swear word that is never used in real French. Instead, we would say mince, mince, or zut, zut, or other common rude swear words that I am not going to say here. Another euphemism that we can use is purée, purée, which funnily enough means mashed potato. Likewise, never say bien fait, or mon ami on their own in French. I made whole lessons on the topic, and these are actually French words and expressions, but they're not used the way that you might think. Bien fait literally means well done, but most of the time it's more of an insult because it's a taunt. You should use bravo, super, bravo or super instead. Telling someone bien fait actually means you deserved it or serves you right. It's for a bad thing that happened to them. Bienfait can be positive, but only with a noun, such as ton dessin est bien fait. Your drawing is well done. Your drawing is good. Ton dessin est bien fait. Meanwhile, mon ami does mean my friend, like mon ami est arrivé, my friend arrived. That's fine. But we never usually use it as an address, such as ah, mon ami, or oui, mon ami, or whatever. That would sound old-fashioned and too emphatic. And it's not just words though. I also want to talk about French fries and some of the other things that are French in English but not in French. And French fries are exactly that. Here they're called les frites. And there is a big debate in the north on whether they were invented in northern France or in Belgium, so I can't say for sure that they are even French. A healthier food is French beans, les haricots verts. Les haricots verts. And these are not French at all. They come from America and got popular all across Europe, and they got called the French beans in English in the 19th century, probably because of English people discovering French cuisine, and it's a fascinating story, but for another time. I also heard the word French window or French door. In French, they're simply called une porte-fenêtre. Une porte-fenêtre, which is a door that's also a window. I didn't even know they were supposed to be French. The idea is that they were used first in French palaces like le Château de Versailles, le Château de Versailles, when kings switched from strong medieval castles to palaces that would show their wealth instead. I am not a historian, so I can't say if it's really true, only that French people never call it fenêtre française. Like French bread too. Yes, what's usually called French bread in English doesn't really exist here. First, because bread in France is crispier and crunchier, and second, because there are a lot of different French breads, like la baguette, la ficelle, la boule, le pain de campagne, or la brioche. So if you're at une boulangerie, you need to be much more precise than un pain français. Meanwhile, what is not French at all is the French manicure, or as we say in French, une French manucure. Yes, in French we use a mix of French and English here. This technique was actually created by an American in Hollywood in the 1970s, and the adjective French is pure marketing. But you know, it's okay. It's all okay. Because we do have our share of Anglicisms too. Like saying un jogging for a tracksuit, that doesn't make any sense. I've talked a bit about it in my lesson about fitness in France that you will find at the end of today's lesson. And we also give things a nationality, like la crème anglaise, the English cream for custard, or une cuisine américaine, literally an American kitchen for an open kitchen, or une tente canadienne, for a Canadian tent, literally, which is a ridge tent, which is not une tente canadienne, a Canadian aunt, even though it has the same pronunciation. It is just nice to know these kind of things before you get into weird misunderstandings like
Je suis américaine, mais j'ai une tante canadienne.
Oh, moi aussi, dans mon placard. We've seen a lot of vocabulary together today, so let's recap a few words. So today we saw brun and brune for brunette. We have a un sound in brun and the U sound in brune. Repeat after me. Brun, brune. Again, brun, brune. And one last time. Brun, brune. Brun and brune also mean brown. So you can say une brune for a brunette, but also une fille brune for a girl with black hair. Repeat after me. Une fille brune. Une fille brune. And des cheveux bruns for brown hair. Repeat after me. Des cheveux bruns. Des cheveux bruns. One last time. Des cheveux bruns. Good. Then we saw mince, mince for oh no, with this nasal un sound. Mince, un. Repeat after me. Mince. Again. Mince. 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 This one is a euphemism because it is a polite swear word that we can use whenever something goes wrong. And literally, mince means slim. If you want, you can also use purée, that literally means mashed potatoes, but it is the same as mince. Repeat after me. Purée. 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 Good. Then we saw les frites for French fries. Talking about potatoes, we say les frites. Repeat after me. Les frites. Les frites. This is the real French word for French fries. And by the way, it is feminine. We say une frite. Une frite. We also saw les haricots verts for French beans or green beans. In French, un haricot is a bean. You have a silent T at the end of haricot. We don't say haricot, but with what we call un H aspiré at the beginning. This is a rare instance where the H is silent but creates a cut. So there is no liaison. We don't say un haricot, but we say un haricot. Un haricot. Then we have vert. Vert in French means green with a silent T. We don't say verte in the masculine form, we say vert. It's part of the French words that share the same sound vert, and I made a full lesson on this one. So now let's assemble all these elements so you can repeat after me. Un haricot vert. Repeat after me. Un haricot vert. Remember, silent T's. The H is a silent H. That makes a cut. Again, un haricot vert. Un haricot vert. Good. Then we saw une porte-fenêtre for a French window. This is not that useful in everyday life, but it is a way to learn une porte for a door. Une porte. Une porte. Then we have une fenêtre for a window with the E sound in F and a E sound in naître. Une fenêtre. Une fenêtre. So, une porte-fenêtre is a door window, a French window. Repeat after me. Une porte-fenêtre. Une porte-fenêtre. Une porte-fenêtre. Good. Then we saw le pain, remember, with the nasal un sound for bread. Le pain, le pain. You know this one. So you might also want to learn some other types of bread as well, like la baguette. Repeat after me. La baguette. Not la baguette, okay? La baguette. Repeat after me again. La baguette. We also have le pain de campagne. Repeat after me. Le pain de campagne. Le pain de campagne. A bit faster. Le pain de campagne. And then we have la brioche, which is so delicious. Repeat after me, la brioche. La brioche. La brioche. Bread names often have another meaning as well. You will find them in my blog post for today's lesson on my website. And finally, some quick vocabulary. Remember, la crème anglaise, which is literally English cream for custard. Repeat after me, la crème anglaise. La crème anglaise. One last time, la crème anglaise. We also saw la cuisine américaine for an open kitchen, but literally American kitchen. Repeat after me, la cuisine américaine. La cuisine américaine. La cuisine américaine. And at last, la tente canadienne for a rich tent, literally a Canadian tent. Repeat after me, la tente canadienne. La tente canadienne. And one last time, la tente canadienne. Good. It's no secret that food is the key part of French culture. From the art of baking the perfect baguette to classic French dishes such as le bœuf bourguignon, le cassoulet or le coq au vin, we are known for our food. But it might surprise you to know that a French person would never refer to themselves as a foodie. Foodie culture really came about in the 1980s, but really took off thanks to the food bloggers and social media, but it doesn't really exist in France. Why is that? And what is a foodie anyway? And why wouldn't a French person identify as one? I will explain this in today's lesson that will be completely in French. This way you can learn more about French culture and practice your oral comprehension at the same time. Are you ready? Let's dive in, and I hope you brought snacks. C'est parti. On ne peut pas traduire exactement foodie en français. Un amateur de nourriture serait un gourmet, mais c'est plus prestigieux que foodie, ou même un gastronome, mais c'est plus formel. J'aime bien le mot gourmand aussi. En tout cas, le mot foodie a été inventé dans les années 80 aux États-Unis pour parler de quelqu'un qui aime vraiment la nourriture. Pour les gens qui vont chercher des nouveaux restaurants à la mode et maintenant les partager sur les réseaux sociaux. Des passionnés qui veulent mieux profiter des restaurants que la moyenne des gens. Je le dis tout de suite, le mot foodie est laid. C'est quand même un pur produit marketing pour attirer les gens qui aiment manger. C'est-à-dire à peu près tout le monde. Mais admettons. En France, en tout cas, peu de gens se définissent comme foodie. Oh, bien sûr, tout le monde aime bien manger, mais ça ne fait pas rentrer dans un réseau établi de passionnés avec du prestige reconnu. Peut-être parce qu'en France, le repas est un plaisir lent, social, où le but est de passer un bon moment avec quelqu'un et pas de se faire mousser. Alors, évidemment, il y a des restaurants prestigieux comme un restaurant gastronomique ou un restaurant étoilé. C'est très bon et très impressionnant. Mais tout le monde est d'accord là-dessus. Tout le monde est au courant. Je veux dire, un foodie va être fier de te faire connaître un meilleur endroit que tes restaurants habituels. Mais en France, on sait déjà quels sont les restaurants de qualité. Pour les grandes occasions, ce qui nous fait choisir entre un resto et un autre, ce n'est pas de le connaître, c'est simplement d'en avoir les moyens. Et dans les repas français, la liste d'invités est plus importante que rechercher le resto à la mode. Ce n'est pas une compétition, c'est un moment partagé. En plus, en France, il n'y a pas vraiment de culture de le client est roi. Les travailleurs du restaurant ne sont pas nos amis ou nos serviteurs, donc on va moins discuter avec eux. Et au passage, c'est rare de faire renvoyer des plats ou de prendre des doggy bags. C'est possible, mais c'est rare. Une autre chose importante. Ici, presque tout le monde sait cuisiner. On mange plus souvent à la maison. C'est peut-être plus rare de manger au restaurant. Alors, il y a des gens qui cuisinent mieux, évidemment, et c'est fantastique. Mais comme tout le monde connaît les bases, ça ne suffit pas pour en faire un réseau culturel de foodies. En plus, on trouve facilement des ingrédients de qualité sur les marchés ou même au supermarché. Bien sûr, on peut toujours chercher le meilleur, comme la ferme bio qui chante individuellement une berceuse pour faire pousser les navets. Mais les ingrédients ordinaires sont déjà assez bons. Donc bien manger équilibré n'est pas inaccessible, surtout pour la classe moyenne. Donc on ne voit pas la peine d'en faire sa passion et son identité. Et c'est là mon dernier point. C'est moins courant de se donner à fond dans une passion. En France, on va peut-être moins se définir par sa passion, par son hobby. C'est pour ce genre de choses que d'après le stéréotype, les Américains sont plus intenses ou enthousiastes. Nous, on ne va pas dire « je suis un foodie », on va simplement aimer manger. Ça va? Tu as tout compris? Tu trouveras le texte en entier avec sa traduction complète sur le billet de blog pour cette leçon sur mon site. Clique sur le lien sous la vidéo si tu regardes ça sur YouTube et c'est gratuit. Mais j'aimerais parler de quelques mots que tu as vus à l'écran, comme gourmand. Gourmand, c'est difficile à traduire. C'est proche de qui aime manger. Mais c'est un peu comme un jeu et surtout on pense à quelque chose de sucré. Par exemple, un enfant gourmand qui voudrait manger tout le chocolat. Ou un repas gourmand est généreux. Et un café gourmand, c'est un café avec des petits gâteaux. Répète après moi, gourmand, gourmand, gourmand. Bien. J'ai parlé de un restaurant, qu'on appelle aussi un resto in informal French. Ça peut être un restaurant gastronomique, it is French for a gourmet restaurant, or un restaurant étoilé, which is a restaurant with the honor to have at least one Michelin star. Repeat after me, un restaurant, then un resto, un restaurant, un resto, one last time, un restaurant, un resto. Bien. Là, vous mangerez peut-être un navet, a turnip, et même un navet bio. Bio, ça veut dire issu de l'agriculture biologique. So we have an organic turnip. Repeat after me, un navet bio. Un navet bio. Un navet bio. Super. Enfin, on a plusieurs expressions de la vie courante, comme au courant, which means in the new. Au courant. Repeat after me. Au courant. Au courant. Au courant. Good. Au courant, by the way, doesn't mean up to date, which is a very common mistake among students. Then we have en avoir les moyens. En avoir les moyens means being able to afford it, to have the means to do it. We also saw se faire mousser. I love this one. Se faire mousser means to boast, to impress. But literally, it means to be foamed, like the foam in your bath. Then we have pas la peine, which is not worth it. Pas la peine, not worth it. Repeat after me. Pas la peine. Pas la peine. And one last time. pas la peine. Good. We also saw se donner à fond, which means in English to give your all, to give your everything, all your energy and dedication. Se donner à fond. Repeat after me. Se donner à fond. Se donner à fond. Se donner à fond. Good. In today's lesson, let's visit Paris together one more time. Les Champs-Élysées are called the most beautiful avenue in the world. But actually, French people never go there for shopping. Why? Where could you go in Paris to get a more authentic experience? Or for better luxury shops? If you want to improve your French while learning about these beautiful, real, authentic Parisian sites, you're in the good place. In today's lesson, I will give you pronunciation tips for words like les Champs-Élysées and the real French point of view on this very famous avenue. C'est parti!
Aux Champs-Élysées.
Aux Champs-Élysées, au soleil, sous la pluie, à midi ou à minuit, il y a tout ce que vous voulez aux Champs-Élysées.
L'avenue des Champs-Élysées, l'avenue des Champs-Élysées, also called les Champs-Élysées or even les Champs, is not only une chanson, a song of course. It is the famous avenue in Paris, 2 kilometers long, between la Place de la Concorde with its famous obelisk, and l'Arc de Triomphe, Since the 19th century, French people have been calling it la plus belle avenue du monde. La plus belle avenue du monde, the most beautiful avenue in the world. Some of these pronunciations can be difficult if you're learning French. Like une avenue with this U sound. Can you repeat after me? Une avenue. It is not the U sound, it is not avenue, it is this longer U. Avenue. Avenue. Can you repeat one last time? Avenue. Good. But today I want to concentrate on nasal sounds like la chanson. La chanson. In la chanson, the song, we have 2 nasal sounds. We have a on and we have a on. Can you hear the difference? On, 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 on. Repeat after me. La chanson. La chanson. La chanson. Good. I've talked in detail about the un sound in a previous lesson. So today let's concentrate on these other nasal sounds. You'll find them everywhere in French. For example, in le monde, the world, with the on sound. Repeat after me. Le monde. Le monde. Le monde. In l'Arc de Triomphe, we also have this on sound, but as you can see, it has an M. This is just a rule about writing, but the sound is exactly the same. Repeat after me. L'Arc de Triomphe. You might have noticed that the PH make a F sound. Repeat after me. L'Arc de Triomphe. L'Arc de Triomphe. Good. And of course, les Champs-Élysées. Les Champs-Élysées. The name comes from the Elysian Fields. This was the place for afterlife in the Greek mythology. And un champ here is a field. Un champ. There are several things going on with the pronunciation of les Champs-Élysées. First, we have la liaison. Here, the S that is supposed to be silent in les champs, without anything after, becomes a Z sound because we have Élysée after with un E in French. We say les Champs-Élysées. Repeat after me. Les Champs-Élysées. Good. We also have a silent P. We don't say les champs. We say les champs, les champs, les champs. The P is silent. And at the end of Élysée, E, S are silent as well. I know it looks difficult, but it's much easier than you think. And at last, we have a nasal on in les Champs-Élysées. So repeat after me with all that. Les Champs-Élysées. Les Champs-Élysées. One last time. Les Champs-Élysées. Good. But anyway, French people almost never go there. It's like Piccadilly Circus in London or Times Square in New York. It's very famous, always crowded, mostly with travelers. But it's basically a tourist trap. And that is because it is so famous. The rents are so high that only the most overpriced restaurants and international brands can afford to be there. Most of which you already have at home anyway. And they have to cater the taste of the average rich tourist rather than the locals. But you know, it can be fun anyway. If that's your thing, you can enjoy a one-stop shopping street for all of your French shopping on a beautiful avenue. You will still find French luxury brands like Chanel, Longchamp or Louis Vuitton, and you can get to say that it comes from the beautiful Champs-Élysées. But there are other streets in Paris where you could get a better shopping experience. Let's get back for a minute on the pronunciation of one brand. It's Longchamp. Once again, we have two nasal sounds in a row. We have the on first with Longchamp and the en, Longchamp. We also have a silent G and a silent P because un long champ is literally a long field. The G and the P is silent in each of those words. And when the words are mashed together to form a noun, we keep their pronunciation. So repeat after me, Longchamp. Longchamp. One last time, Longchamp. Good. It is the same thing with, say, the Parisian hill of Montmartre. Montmartre. The T is silent in the middle. Speaking of other Parisian neighborhoods, where else can you go shopping in Paris? Which streets can provide a better shopping experience than les Champs-Élysées? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. For example, if you want real luxury, you can go to la rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. La rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. That's where many luxury labels have their flagship stores with special designs and very impressive storefronts. Really, if you have the time and the occasion, it is worth a look, even if you're not planning on buying anything at the stores. And Faubourg Saint-Honoré has an interesting pronunciation as well. You have the silent G at the end of Faubourg. We don't say Faubourg, we say Faubourg. This time we also have a OU sound in Faubourg. And at last you have the liaison in Saint-Honoré. Saint-Honoré. Repeat after me. Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Faubourg Saint-Honoré. One last time. Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Good. Another street to check out is the very aptly named Rue du Commerce. It is a street where Parisian people actually go buy French fashion, perfumes, decoration, and more. You will find affordable fashion and special boutiques that don't exist anywhere else. But most of all, it is a very typical Parisian street. With its parks, its church, a baker, a butcher in a quiet neighborhood in the capital. If you want something more historical and more trendy, you can visit La Rue des Francs-Bourgeois. La Rue des Francs-Bourgeois is in the neighborhood of Le Marais. Le Marais. And it's in the very center of Paris. It's not only a great shopping street, but it's also a nice place to people watch and to enjoy the Parisian atmosphere. And a great French pronunciation practice. Franc. Franc means frank, honest. It used to be the name of the French currency as well. You have a nasal en, and a silent C at the end, even in the plural. It's like blanc, blanc for white. Repeat after me. Franc, franc, franc. Good. And un bourgeois is a bourgeois.
Les bourgeois.
Originally, it's someone living in Le Bourg, an old name for the city. And it gradually became a name for the high social class. In bourgeois, the S is silent and the E is only here to make a soft G. This way, it sounds like je sound instead of g sound. There are two syllables. The first one is bourg with the ou sound and a French R, bourg, bourg, bourg. And we have joie, joie, like joy, la joie. Bourgeois, bourgeois, bourgeois. And now you can repeat after me the whole name, les francs bourgeois. Les francs bourgeois. Remember, silent C, silent S, and we have a je sound instead of a g sound. Les francs bourgeois. One last time. Les francs bourgeois. La rue des francs bourgeois. Bravo. And only a 10-minute walk from that street, I would recommend visiting le marché des enfants rouges. Le marché des enfants rouges. It is the oldest covered market in Paris and local people love it. The place is easygoing, you can grab something to eat and take the sense and colors of the setting that's both historical and modern. You can buy specialties from all parts of France and from all over the world. And you get to try and pronounce the word un enfant for a child. Un enfant. In un enfant, you have a silent T at the end and two nasal sounds. En and fan. Enfant, enfant. Repeat after me. Un enfant. Un enfant. One last time. Un enfant. Bien. Finally, I want to circle back to our beautiful avenue of Les Champs-Élysées, because I said that French people never go there, and it's mostly true, especially for shopping. But in some occasions, the place is invaded by locals. And that's for big celebrations and gatherings. The most famous one is le 14 juillet, le 14 juillet. It is our national holiday. The big military parade marches down the avenue and a lot of French people come to watch and be part of that summer ceremony. But you can also get massive gatherings for other reasons. Whether it's protests or a victory at soccer's La Coupe du Monde, the World Cup, La Coupe du Monde. And now let's do a quick test before you go. How do you pronounce these three words? Say them out loud in front of your screen. Don't be shy. Yes, it is les Champs-Élysées, les francs bourgeois, and un enfant. Garçon is the French word for boy. Garçon. You might have seen this in outdated French books or in a movie set in France where the protagonist needs something in a cafe, raises a hand and says, Garçon. Well, it's a French cliché from outdated French, so please don't do this anymore. Let's see what you can do instead and how to use garçon in the normal way without being condescending. C'est parti! Bonjour, I'm Géraldine, your French teacher. Welcome to Comme une Française. Today, like every Tuesday, I'm here to help you get better at speaking and understanding everyday modern French. Allez, c'est parti! In French, we can call a waiter un garçon. Un garçon. Literally, it means a boy. Un garçon. Don't forget le CCD though, le CCD, because it makes the C sound like an S. Because if you forget the CD, then it makes garcon. And con is an insult. It means stupid in a much worse way.
C'est que garçon, si t'enlèves la cédille, ça fait garcon. Et garcon, ma fille, garcon.
More specifically, a French waiter in a café is called un garçon de café. Un garçon de café. This is how we sometimes call them, but most of the time we talk about un serveur for a waiter, un serveur, or une serveuse for a waitress. So why shouldn't you use garçon to call a waiter? Well, it is something that you sometimes see in old textbooks, but it is outdated and it can be condescending, and honestly, close to no one uses that. Well, you don't need to do much actually if you want to order something. So, for example, what can you do? You have to raise your hand like that and try to make eye contact, and if you want to be even more noticeable, you can say, s'il vous plaît, s'il vous plaît. This is what I would do, and this is what I do all the time when I'm at a restaurant or a café or a bistro, for example. You'll notice this in the movie Intouchable.
Monsieur, s'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît. Oui. Je prends des tartes tatin, s'il vous plaît.
This is a very funny scene, very French, where they're going to make fun of the waiter after. If you want the bill, you can ask l'addition s'il vous plaît, l'addition s'il vous plaît, and they will come with the bill. You can also ask for other things. For example, on peut avoir une carafe d'eau s'il vous plaît? On peut avoir une carafe d'eau s'il vous plaît? Could we have a jug of tap water please? Which is very common in restaurants. Or on peut avoir plus de pain, s'il vous plaît? On peut avoir plus de pain, s'il vous plaît? Notice the S at the end of plus to mean more, and you might know that bread is free in France, so you can absolutely ask for more. Now, you should always be polite, but you might be surprised because what is expected of waiters in France is different from what might be expected in the US, for example. French waiters are not expected to actually socialize. They're just here to bring you your food so you can enjoy it and just talk with your friends, because food is social in France. So they're kind of ghosts actually more than friends. So this is what they're not going to tell you their names, for example. However, you should never really tolerate rudeness, and it sometimes happens that some waiters are not really made for that and they're very rude even in French standards, so be aware. And I'm really sorry about that. Finally, un garçon is absolutely fine for a boy, a young male person, but again, don't forget le CCD, okay?
Tu sais que garçon, si t'enlèves la cédille, ça fait garcon. Alors garcon, ma fille.
Mon garçon is my child or my son. Mon garçon, and un petit garçon is a small boy. That's pretty easy to guess. For young men, it is a bit condescending to talk about un garçon, just like in English, I assume. But in everyday slang, what you're going to use instead for a male friend is un mec or un gars for a dude. Un mec or un gars. It is a normal word of familiar French for a man. But it's still acceptable to use les garçons for a group of dudes. For example, when you're talking about them as friends, on est allé se balader avec Julie pendant que les garçons faisaient la cuisine. On est allé se balader avec Julie pendant que les garçons faisaient la cuisine. We went out for a walk with Julie while the boys were actually cooking. And at last, a bit of French culture. Les Garçons is in the title of one of the most famous sitcoms in the 80s in French called Hélène et les Garçons. Hélène et les Garçons. And despite its title, it is not a retelling of the Iliad. Bravo! You can continue exploring French culture and French language with me with another lesson on the same topic. Click right here on your screen to access the next video and I will see you there. Allez, à tout de suite!